The audio on. Alright, there is an ad in progress right now, and it ends in 2.5 minutes.
Would you like me to wait?
Huh?
Would you like me to wait?
Probably. That might be a good thing because some of the people probably have. Wait, who? Somebody dropped out. Some. Okay. I don't know who. Hello! What was that? Uh.
Akria, aka my boyfriend, has
Thank
followed the channel.
you! Akria, thank you so much for following. I greatly appreciate that.
And hey, rival, how you doing?
I don't know if he is stuck in an ad right now. There is a little bit over a minute and a half left. Akriath, it doesn't say it right there. I'm saying it how Amar saying it because it's her boyfriend. We have about a
While
minute and a half.
while waiting for ads to finish, I'm gonna go grab the remote for the dang fan in here because it
Go
is already
ahead.
hot.
I was about to say, I don't really want to start anything until the ads are over.
I got through the day.
Yeah, is that like a new thing, honey? Yeah, ad timers are great. That way we
Wait,
can tell when the ads start.
I'm sorry you've been feeling pretty down, rival.
I don't think Rival can hear you yet. I honestly don't know. Um,
Rival responded to something that I said,
I
so
know. Wait, what?
yeah. I asked Rival how they were doing, and they've said that they're feeling pretty down today, and I'm
Oh!
sorry.
Oh
I'm
shoot!
hoping that this
Rival
meeting can help.
actually can hear us, so they're not in ad jail. Nice. As I said, I'm waiting for the ads to stop so that way everybody can hear us at the same time. We're just kind of wasting time. 15 seconds. Sorry for those who are not stuck in ad jail. Um, can you guys hear me, by the way? All right, community is back.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, let's do a check real quick since Raina couldn't be heard last
I
time.
know, right? That's kind of sucked. I don't. No worries, but yeah, fighting with it. Pretty paranoid and enduring. Yes, I hear you, Raina. Yay, we fixed it!
We fixed it.
All
Yay!
right,
Yay!
success. Anyway, I chose this reactive because I've had this one for a while, and in the server we make a joke that Amar is my child. So see the resemblance, both shop owners, and we even kind of look a little bit similar. Different colored eyes, but you know what? That can be explained as she got her eyes from her father, although her father's eyes are blue and yellow. I don't know how that happened. Face
It
shenanigans.
shows cleanliness in me.
Blue and pink. I know. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, okay. Um, anyway, so we are here to listen to Amar read Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. Which chapter are we on, my dear?
We're on chapter 5, so we have gotten through Percy's first two monster kills, the Fury and the Minotaur. We've gone through the loss of his mother, and he has just woken up at Camp Half Blood. Or, no, sorry, he's in this chapter, he'll be waking up. Spoiler alert, my bad. He just made it to Camp Half Blood, my bad.
Yeah, if anybody has watched the movies, not so
Not
much a
anything like
spoiler, kind of. But like all good stories, book tends to be better, and the movie has left shit out.
well, like, to be fair, they kind of have to do that for, timing purposes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, last time I gave us the chapter title of I play Pinocchio with a horse. I have discovered since then that I actually pronounced that word wrong. It's pinochle.
Oh,
My mom has actually played the game before.
that's
She
fair.
was little when she played it, but she has played the game before. All I know is it's kind of like the domino game 42 and the card game Bridge with some hearts aspects thrown in. It's a strange game.
Thanks,
Hi,
Panda.
Panda. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Chapter 5. I play pinochle with a horse. I had weird dreams full of barnyard animals. Most of them wanted to kill me. The rest just wanted food. I must have woken up several times, but what I heard and saw made no sense, so I just passed out again. I remember lying in a soft bed, being spoon-fed something that tasted like buttered popcorn, only it was pudding. The girl with curly blonde hair hovered over me, smirking as she scraped drips off my chin with the spoon. When she saw my eyes open, she asked, "What will happen at the summer solstice?" I managed to croak, "What?" She looked around, as if afraid someone would overhear. "What's going on? What was stolen? We've only got a few weeks." "Sorry," I mumbled. "I don't—" Somebody knocked on the door, and the girl quickly filled my mouth with pudding. The next time I woke up, the girl was gone. A husky blonde dude, like a surfer, stood in the corner of the bedroom keeping watch over me. He had blue eyes, at least a dozen of them, on his cheeks, his forehead, the back of his hands. When I finally came around for good, there was nothing weird about my surroundings, except that they were nicer than I was used to. I was sitting in a deck chair on a huge porch, gazing across a meadow at green hills in the distance. The breeze smelled like strawberries. There was a blanket over my legs, a pillow behind my neck. All that was great, but my mouth felt like a scorpion had been using it for a nest. My tongue was dry and nasty, and every one of my teeth hurt. On the table next to me was a tall drink. It looked like iced apple juice, with a green straw and a paper parasol stuck through a maraschino cherry. My hand was so weak I almost dropped the glass once I got my fingers around it. "Careful," a familiar voice said. Grover was leaning against the porch railing, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. Under one arm, he cradled a shoebox. He was wearing blue jeans, Converse high tops, and a bright orange t-shirt that said Camp Half-Blood. Just plain old Grover, not the goat boy. So maybe I'd had a nightmare. Maybe my mom was okay. We were still on vacation, and we'd stopped here at this big house for some reason, and "You saved my life," Grover said. I, well, the least I could do. I went back to the hill. I thought you might want this." Reverently, he placed the shoebox in my lap. Inside was a black and white bull's horn, the base jagged from being broken off, the tip splattered with dried blood. It hadn't been a nightmare. "A minotaur," I said. Percy, it isn't a good idea—" "That's what they called him in the Greek myths, isn't it?" I demanded. "The minotaur? Half man, half bull?" Grover shifted uncomfortably. You've been out for 2 days. How much do you remember? My mom. Is she really? He looked down. I stared across the meadow. There were groves of trees, a winding stream, acres of strawberries spread out under the blue sky. The valley was surrounded by rolling hills, and the tallest one, directly in front of us, was the one with the huge pine tree on top. Even that looked beautiful in the sunlight. My mother was gone. The whole world should be black and cold. Nothing should look beautiful. I'm sorry, Grover sniffled. I'm a failure. I'm the worst satyr in the world. He moaned, stomping his foot so hard it came off. I mean, the Converse high top came off.
Wait a minute, he's a satyr?
Yeah.
Dude, it's Helios's cousin!
This was revealed in chapter 4. Grover unexpectedly loses his pants.
I was kind of in and out of sleepy.
Ah, okay.
Remember? You did your
That
job.
was the whole goal. The inside was filled with styrofoam, except for a hoof-shaped hole. But yeah, he a satyr. Oh, sticks, he mumbled. Thunder rolled across the clear sky. As he struggled to get his hoof back in the fake foot, I thought, well, that settles it. Grover was a satyr. I was ready to bet that if I shaved his curly brown hair, I'd find tiny horns on his head. But I was too miserable to care that satyrs existed, or even minotaurs. All that night, if my mom had really been squeezed into nothing, dissolved into yellow light. I was alone, an orphan. I would have to live with Smelly Gabe? No, that would never happen. I would live on the streets first. I would pretend I was 17 and join the army. I'd do something. Grover was still sniffling. Poor kid. Poor goat.
Poor
Satyr.
kid.
Whatever. Yeah, I know, right? Looked as if he expected to be hit. I said, "It wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was. I was supposed to protect you." "Did my mother ask you to protect me?" "No,
Your
that's
dad
my
did.
job. I'm a keeper. At least, I was. But why?" I suddenly felt
Hello.
dizzy. Yes?
Jenga raided us!
Alrighty then.
Wait, no.
Oh,
NGAVT. My bad.
that is Jenga.
Oh, Jenga! Hey, what's up, buddy?
Welcome in, guys.
Welcome to Cafe Arcadia. I am one of the owners, Raina Arcadia, and my husband's in the back, still getting better. And then we have our esteemed guest, Amara, which our avatars look similar, kind of on purpose. Not by her, but that was on my end. Um, she is reading Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, which I have a picture of it on screen. And I hope you guys enjoy her wonderful voice tonight. Go ahead.
There we are.
Sorry.
But why? I suddenly felt dizzy, my vision swimming. "Don't strain yourself," Grover said. "Here." He helped me hold my glass and put the straw to my lips. I recoiled at the taste, because I was expecting apple juice. It wasn't that at all. It was chocolate chip cookies. Liquid cookies.
That's
And not
bizarre.
just, I know, right? And not just any cookies. My mom's homemade blue chocolate chip cookies. Buttery and hot, with the chips still melting.
Mhm.
That sounds so good.
Does.
Oh, damn.
Damn, that's one of the things that you get in a book and you don't get in a movie. The descriptions.
Descriptions. Drinking it, my whole body felt warm and good, full of energy. My grief didn't go away, but I felt as if my mom had just brushed her hand against my cheek, given me a cookie the way she used to when I was small, and told me everything was going to be okay. Before I knew it, I drained the glass. I stared into it. Sure, I'd just had a warm drink, but the ice cubes hadn't even melted. Was it good? Grover asked. I nodded. What did it taste like? He sounded so wistful. I felt guilty. Sorry, I said. I should have let you taste. His eyes. I hate the G sound today.
You good there?
Yeah, the G got stuck. His eyes got wide. No, that's not what I meant. I just wondered. Chocolate chip cookies, I said. My mom's. Homemade. He sighed. And how do you feel? Like I could throw Nancy Bobofit 100 yards. Good, he said. That's good. I don't think you could risk drinking any more of that stuff.
Mm.
What do you mean? He took the empty glass from me gingerly, as if it were dynamite, and set it back on the table. Come on, Caroline and Mr. D are waiting. The porch wrapped all the way around the farmhouse. My legs felt wobbly, trying to walk that far. Grover offered to carry the Minotaur horn, but I held on to it. I'd paid for that souvenir the hard way. I wasn't going to let it go. As we came around the opposite end of the house, I caught my breath. We must have been on the north shore of Long Island, because on this side of the house, the valley marched all the way up to the water, which glittered about a mile in the distance. Between here and there, I simply couldn't process everything I was seeing. The landscape was dotted with buildings that looked like ancient Greek architecture. An open-air pavilion, an amphitheater, a circular arena, except that they all looked brand new. Their white marble columns sparkling in the sun.
Thank you for following. Do not know how to pronounce that. I am so sorry.
I almost want to call that a keyboard smash, except there are too many A's in a row. My apologies.
I would have to apologize too, because I'm sorry. I'm very very bad at pronouncing things.
In a nearby sandpit, a dozen high school aged kids and satyrs played volleyball. Canoes glided across a small lake. Kids in bright orange t shirts like Grover's were chasing each other around a cluster of cabins nestled in the woods. Some shot targets at an archery range. Others rode horses down a wooded trail, and, unless I was hallucinating, some of their horses had wings. Down at the end of the porch, two men sat across from each other at a card table. The blonde-haired girl who'd spoon-fed me popcorn-flavored pudding was leaning on the porch rail next to them. The man facing me was small but porky. He had a red nose,
Excuse me.
big watery eyes, and curly hair so black it was almost purple. Oh god, I forgot Percy was like this.
What do you mean?
He and words do not get along.
Oops.
He looked like those paintings of baby angels. What do you call them?
Cupids.
Hubs? Like I said, I forgot he was like this.
That's adorable.
Uh-huh. No, cherubs.
Oh,
That's
yeah, that. My dumb butt said cupids.
I mean, similar. He looked like a cherub who'd turned middle-aged in a trailer park.
That's a description.
That is a description. He wore a tiger-patterned Hawaiian shirt, and he would have fit right in at one of Gabe's poker parties. Except I got the feeling this guy could have out-gambled even my stepfather.
Huh.
That's Mr. D, Grover murmured to me. He's the camp director. Be polite. Girl, that's Annabeth Chase. She's just a camper, but she's been here longer than just about anybody. And you already know Chiron. He pointed at the guy whose back was to me. First, I realized he was sitting in the wheelchair. Then I recognized the tweed jacket, the thinning brown hair, and the scraggly beard. Mr. Brunner, I cried. The Latin teacher turned and smiled at me. His eyes had that mischievous glint that they sometimes got in class when he pulled a pop quiz and made all the multiple choice answers B.
Mm,
I would have loved a teacher that did that.
I know, right?
Would have made me question my sanity and my knowledge, though.
Very true.
Oh,
this
good.
is too easy.
Ah, good, Percy, he said. Now we have 4 for Pinochle. He offered me a chair to the right of Mr. D. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes and heaved a great sigh. Oh, I suppose I must say it. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. There. Now, don't expect me to be glad to see you.
Damn.
Thanks. I scooted a little further away from him, because if there was one thing I had learned from living with Gabe, it was how to tell when an adult had been hitting the happy juice. If Mr. D was a stranger to alcohol, I was a satyr. Annabeth, Mr. Brunner called to the blonde girl. She came forward, and Mr. Brunner introduced us. This young lady nursed you back to health, Percy. Annabeth, my dear, why don't you go check on Percy's bunk? We'll be putting him in cabin 11 for now. Annabeth said, Sure, Chiron. She was probably my age, maybe a couple of inches taller, and a whole lot more athletic looking. With her deep tan and her curly blonde hair, she was almost exactly what I thought a stereotypical California girl would look like. Except her eyes ruined the image. They were a startling gray, like storm clouds. Pretty, but intimidating, too. As if she were analyzing the best way to take me down in a fight. She glanced at the minotaur horn in my hands, then back at me. I imagined she was going to say, You killed the minotaur, or Wow, you're so awesome, or something like that. Instead, she said, You drool when you sleep. and she sprinted off down the lawn, her blonde hair flying behind her. So, I said, anxious to change the subject. You work here, Mr. Brunner? Not Mr. Brunner, the ex-Mr. Brunner said. Geez, that's so confusing. I'm afraid that was a pseudonym. You may call me Chiron. Okay. Totally confused, I looked at the director. And Mr. D. Does that stand for something? Mr. D stopped shuffling the cards. He looked at me like I'd just belched loudly. Young man, names are a powerful thing. You don't go around just using them for no reason. Oh, right. Sorry. Say, Percy. Chiron Brunner broke in. I'm glad to see you alive. It's been a long time since I've made a house call to a potential camper. I hate to think I've wasted my time. House call? My year at Yancey Academy, to instruct you. We have satyrs at most schools, of course, keeping a lookout. But Grover alerted me as soon as he met you. He sensed you were something special, so I decided to come upstate. I convinced the other Latin teacher to, take a leave of absence. I tried to remember the beginning of the school year. It seemed so like so long ago. But I did have a fuzzy memory of there being another Latin teacher in my first in my first week at Yancey. Then, without explanation, he had disappeared and Mr. Brunner had taken the class. You came to Yancey just to teach me? I asked. Chiron nodded. Honestly, I wasn't sure about you at first. We contacted your mother, let her know we were keeping an eye on you in case you were ready for Camp Half-Blood. But you still had so much to learn. Nevertheless, you made it here alive, and that is always the first test. Grover, Mr. D said impatiently, are you playing or not? Yes, sir. Grover trembled as he took the fourth chair. Though I didn't know why he should be so afraid of a pudgy little man in a tiger print Hawaiian shirt. You do know how to play pinochle? Mr. D eyed me suspiciously. I'm afraid not, I said. I'm afraid not, sir, he said. Sir, I repeated. I was liking the camp director less and less. Well, he told me, it is, along with gladiator fighting and Pac-Man, one of the greatest games ever invented by humans. I would expect all civilized young men to know the rules.
Dude, I don't even know how to play pinochle.
He has a very skewed sense of greatest games ever.
So it would seem.
I'm sure the boy can learn, Chiron said. Please, I said, what is this place? What am I doing here? Mr. Chiron, why would you go to Yancey Academy just to teach me? Not just teenagers, but preteens and teenagers. Mr. Me? Sorry, I was sitting on my phone and it chose to go off. Mr. D snorted. I asked the same question. The camp director dealt the cards. Grover flinched every time one landed on his pile. Chiron smiled at me sympathetically, the way he used to in Latin class, as if to let me know that no matter what my average was, I was the star student. He expected me to have the right answer. Um, Actually, if I did the math, um,
I'm
early
making a guess.
I did the math at one point, and I think it was in the early aughts.
Early what?
Aughts,
What's that?
um, the 2000s. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in the 2000s with the final battle happening somewhere in 2010.
Oh, so it is Zoomers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
My bad.
he would be in the millennial to Zoomer time frame of birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably about as old as me, or maybe a little older.
A little older would place him a millennial, I think.
Yeah, but in 2005 I was 10, so he would be a little earlier, little older than me, probably by like 2 years.
So he's a millennial because he was born in the 90s. The
Very,
early
very
90s.
millennial. He's in that millennial Zoomer crossover.
I was supposed to say, if you were born in 1995, you're 28 because Sagril is 2 years older than you.
1996 is the last year of millennial, but I do know that the decade of 92 to '02 is proposed to be called Zillennial
Yeah, because it's
because
the in-between.
we're too young for the millennials and too old for the Zoomers.
No, Shiki, sh yeah, no, you use a baby, Shiki.
I know I sound young.
You also look young, Amar.
That's a curse.
I'm aware. I'm aware of what the curse is. I had it. Well, technically, I still have it.
You hydrate real quick.
Yes, Shiki, you
Here to
still
hydrate,
look like you're
darling.
16.
Hey, when I actually work at it, I can look to be at least 18 to 20.
When I work at it, I look like I'm Shiki's age. Now, I actually probably have to wear makeup for that. But yeah, no, I've been mistaken for early 20s. And I'm like, how?
When I'm feeling really, really down, you know, in the need of comfort, especially,
Hmm.
I can look like I'm 12. Because I'm hunched over, I'm wearing extremely baggy clothes. My hair is typically a mess. I look 12.
Oh, was it 5 years or so ago? I worked at a haunted house, and somehow I was able to convince people that I was 14. I was 32. Because I mean, I can make myself sound like a little kid. But that shouldn't be it. I mean, I had my hair in pigtails too, so.
It didn't help at all.
And I'm short.
That definitely doesn't help. I forgot you were short.
Yes, I'm short.
I'm just barely taller than you.
I know, right?
Ouch, I'm sorry, Shiki. Alright, where was I?
Oh, Shiki.
Oh, there we go. He expected me to have the right answer. Percy, he said. Did your mother tell you nothing?
Nope.
Pretty much. She said I remembered her sad eyes, looking out over the sea. She told me she was afraid to send me here, even though my father had wanted her to. She said that once I was here, I probably couldn't leave. She wanted to keep me close to her. Typical, Mr. D said. That's usually how they get killed. Young man, are you bidding
Oh,
or not? Huh?
I was about to say, ow. That's pretty damn fresh too.
Yeah, that is very fresh.
Just ow.
I'm confused at Shiki. Stop just starting. I'm just. What, huh?
Remember, Shiki's not from our generation.
To be fair, I don't understand millennials either.
Hey, hey, you understand me.
But as a whole, I don't understand millennials.
Yeah. A lot of, a very depressed group.
I mean, it does understand why it does help me understand why I turn to alcohol so often. It's
Welcome to
typically cheaper.
millennials.
It's typically cheaper than healthcare.
And it's more legal than drugs.
Most drugs.
Y- yeah,
I want gummies now.
you can get that stuff without a prescription.
Ah, that makes sense. I'm not used to the new Game Plus
I want
option.
I want gum and I can't have it.
Why not?
7 root canals.
Oof. Yeah. Ouch.
5 of them are actually capped, so it would stick.
Yep.
Yeah. Brush your teeth, kids. You don't want this stuff. It sucks.
I mean, the
I had
problem is
extenuating circumstances, but let's ignore that.
the problem is I've got such sensitive gums that the more I brush my teeth, the more they bleed.
Yeah, Sagro has that too.
If I brush my teeth once a week, they don't bleed. If I brush my teeth once a day, they bleed.
Yeah, I. Mm,
I can't say that. I like my sugar too much.
which means you kind of have to brush your teeth, otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is you can brush your teeth and just brush your gums once a week.
The way my toothbrush is shaped, they do both at the same time.
Get a different toothbrush?
Even the child toothbrush does that.
Oh. Well,
So
the
I'll
child
super.
toothbrush that I have, I can brush my teeth. I mean, it might touch the gums a little bit, but it, I
It's
brush my teeth
bristles.
and then I full on brush my gums.
It's the bristles.
Yeah.
Even the super soft bristles of a child's toothbrush causes my gums to bleed.
So sorry.
Yeah. At least it doesn't actually hurt.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Maybe because I'm used to it, I don't know.
Possibly.
Young man, are you bidding or not? What? I asked. He explained, impatiently, how you bid in Pinochle, and so I did. I still want to call it Pinochle, because that's what it looks like.
Mm.
I'm afraid there's too much to tell, Charon said. I'm afraid our usual orientation film won't be sufficient. Keep that in mind, y'all. Keep in mind that he is not watching the orientation film. Want to count how many items likely came up in that film?
Okay.
Oh, it gets bad. It gets really bad, Raina.
Oh no.
Orientation film? I asked. In fact, just before this scene, we had one that would have definitely popped up in the orientation film. When he asked a question and it wasn't answered.
He just woke up. How the hell is he gonna watch an orientation film?
No, right? No, Chiron decided. Well, Percy, you know your friend Grover is a satyr. You know, he pointed to the horn in the shoebox, that you have killed the Minotaur. No small feat either, lad. What you may not know is that great powers are at work in your life. Gods, the forces you call the Greek gods, are very much alive. I know, right, Cheeky?
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty good right about now.
I stared at the others around the table. I waited for somebody to yell, "Not!" But all I got was Mr. D yelling, "Oh, royal marriage! Trick! Trick!"
Okay, okay, your mic peaked. You might want to try that again.
Sorry. And I was even backed up from the mic. I knew I was going to get loud, so I
Yeah,
pushed the
okay,
computer away.
so what you might want to say is he yelled it and just say it.
Fair. I was just trying to get the enthusiasm across.
Oh, I understand. Which mic will
Woo!
probably peak again, though.
I'm trying not to, I promise. Oh, a royal marriage! Trick! Trick! He cackled as he tallied up his points. Better?
Yes.
Yay! I had to pretty much choke myself
Okay,
because the
don't
enthusiasm.
don't do that.
Well, metaphorically.
Ah.
Yeah, no, metaphorically, it's even when I'm reading this to myself, I see the enthusiasm in the words and my body reacts.
Mhm.
Can't stop it. Mr. D? Grover asked timidly. If you're not going to eat it, could I have your Diet Coke can?
I forgot
Eh?
about that scene.
Yeah. Huh? Oh, alright. Goats, am I right?
If only Helios were here.
Grover bit a huge shard out of the empty aluminum can and chewed it mournfully. Wait, wait, I told Chiron. You're telling me that there's such a thing as God. Well, no. God, capital G, God. That's a different matter altogether. We shan't deal with the metaphysical. I'd love to have a satyr friend.
That would be
I
cool.
don't, yeah, I don't have as much in the way of metal, but recycling would be really good. And I would love help with the garden.
Unfortunately, it would cost a pretty penny to get Helios down here.
Yeah. Metaphysical? But you were just talking about, gods, plural, as in great beings that control the forces of nature and human endeavors, the immortal gods of Olympus. That's a smaller matter. Smaller? I'm sorry, but that god might also go after male. I think that god will go after anything with a pulse.
So, Loki.
That actually reminds me of a meme where you're on Tinder and you've matched up with Zeus and Odin. You tell one of them you'll be at this location as a swan, and you tell the other to go to this location as a swan.
Oh, God.
And at the end of it, someone goes, "Loki, is that you?"
Okay, you should probably keep reading before we keep going down this road.
I think we're already down that rabbit hole.
Let's not go any further.
That's a smaller matter. Smaller? Ah, Griff! I dare you to put that in chat. I dare you to put that in chat, love.
Are you gonna double dog or triple dog dare?
Oh, he can't. He just informed me that Zeus fucked a tree.
Why am I not surprised? There's a dryad somewhere.
Smaller? Yes, quite. The gods we discussed in Latin. Which really just doesn't make sense to me, honestly. Discussing Greek and Latin? Zeus, I said. Hera. Apollo. You mean them. And there it was again. Distant thunder on a cloudless day. Oh. He can't chat because, he has to have his account verified, and I think that's on his other set, on another thing.
Yeah, we've had some, us and some other streamers have had some issues.
Fair. Young man, Mr. D said, I would really be less casual about throwing those names around if I were you. But they're stories, I said. They're myths to explain lightning and the seasons and stuff. They're what people believed before there was science.
Keep going.
Science, Mr. D scoffed. And tell me, Perseus Jackson. I flinched when he said my real name, which I never told anybody. What will people think of your science 2,000 years from now? Mr. D continued. What will they call? They will call it primitive mumbo jumbo, that's what. Oh, I love mortals. They have absolutely no sense of perspective. They think, yes, Perseus. They think they've come so far. And have they, Chiron? Look at this boy and tell me. I wasn't liking Mr. D much. But there was something about the way he called me mortal. As if he wasn't. It was enough to put a lump in my throat. To suggest why Grover was dutifully minding his cards, chewing his soda can, and keeping his mouth shut. Percy, Chiron said, you may choose to believe or not. The fact is that immortal means immortal. Can you imagine that for a moment? Never dying, never fading, existing just as you are for all time? I was about to answer, off the top of my head, that it sounded like a pretty good deal, but the tone of Chiron's voice made me hesitate. You mean whether people believed in you or not? I said. Exactly, Chiron agreed. If you were a god, how would you like being called a myth? An old story to explain lightning? What if I told you, Perseus Jackson, that someday people will call you a myth, just created to explain how little boys can get over losing their mothers. My heart pounded. He was trying to make me angry for some reason, but I wasn't going to let him. I said, I wouldn't like it, but I don't believe in gods. Oh, you'd better, Mr. D murmured, before one of them incinerates you. Grover said, Please, sir, he's just lost his mother. He's in shock. A lucky thing, too, Mr. D grumbled, playing a card. Bad enough I'm confined to this miserable job working with boys who don't even believe. He waved his hand, and a goblet appeared on the table, as if the sunlight had bent momentarily and woven the air into glass. The goblet filled itself with red wine. My jaw dropped, but Chiron hardly looked up. Mr. D, he warned, your restrictions. Mr. D looked at the wine and feigned surprise. Dear me! He looked at the sky and yelled, Old habits, sorry. More thunder. Mr. D waved his hand again, and the wine glass changed into a fresh can of Diet Coke. He sighed unhappily, popped the top of the soda, and went back to his card game. Chiron winked at me. Mr. D offended his father a while back. Took fancy to a wood nymph who had been declared off limits. A wood nymph, I repeated, still staring at the Diet Coke can like it was from outer space. Yes, Mr. D confessed. Father loves to punish me. The first time, prohibition. Ghastly. An absolutely horrid 10 years. The second time, well, she really was pretty, and I couldn't stay away. The second time, he sent me here, Half-Blood Hill, summer camp for brats like you. Be a better influence, he told me. Work with use rather than tearing them down. Huh. Absolutely unfair. Mr. D sounded about 6 years old, like a pouting little kid. And, I stammered, your father is... The Immortalis, Chiron, Mr. D said. Thought you taught this boy the basics. My father is Zeus, of course. I ran through the D names from Greek mythology. Wine, the skin of a tiger, the satyrs that all seemed to work here. The way Grover cringed as if Mr. D were his master. You're Dionysus, the god of wine. Mr. D rolled his eyes. What do they say these days, Grover? Do the children say, well, duh? Yes, Mr. D. Then, well, duh, Percy Jackson. Do you think I was Aphrodite, perhaps? You're a god. Yes, child. A god. You. He turned to look at me straight on, and I saw a kind of purplish fire in his eyes. A hint that this whiny, plump little man was only showing me the tiniest bit of his true nature. I saw visions of grapevines choking unbelievers to death, drunken warriors insane with battle lust, sailors screaming as their hands turned to flippers, their faces elongating into dolphin snouts. I knew that if I pushed him, Mr. D would show me worse things. He would plant a disease in my brain that would leave me wearing a straitjacket in a rubber room for the rest of my life. Would you like to test me, child? He said quietly. No, no, sir. The fire died a little. He turned back to his card game. I believe I win. Gods, that changed there. Not quite, Mr. D, Chiron said. He set down a straight, tallied the points, and said, The game goes to me. I thought Mr. D was going to vaporize Chiron right out of his wheelchair, but he just sighed through his nose, as if he were used to being beaten by the Latin teacher. He got up, and Grover rose too. I'm tired, Mr. D said. I believe I'll take a nap before the sing-along tonight. But first, Grover, we need to talk. Again. About your less-than-perfect performance on this assignment. Grover's face beaded with sweat. Yes, sir. Mr. D turned to me. Cabin 11, Percy Jackson, and mind your manners. He swept into the farmhouse, Grover following miserably. Will Grover be okay? I asked Chiron. Chiron nodded, though he looked a bit troubled. Old Dionysus isn't really mad. He just hates his job. He's been, grounded, I guess you would say. And he cannot stand waiting another century before he's allowed to go back to Olympus. Mount Olympus, I said. You're telling me there really is a palace there?
There's an ad starting in 2 minutes.
It starts in 2 minutes?
Keep going. It's not there yet.
Well, no. There's Mount Olympus in Greece. Then there's the home of the gods, the convergence point of their powers, which did indeed used to be on Mount Olympus. It's still called Mount Olympus, out of respect to the old ways. But the palace moves, Percy, just as the gods do. You mean the Greek gods are here? Like, in America? Well, certainly. The gods move with the heart of the West. The what? Come now, Percy. What you call Western civilization, do you think it's just an abstract concept? No, it's a living force. It's a collective consciousness that has burned bright for thousands of years. The gods are part of it. You might even say that they are the source of it. Or at least they are tied so tightly to it that they couldn't possibly fade. Not unless all of Western civilization were obliterated. The fire started in Greece. Then, as you well know, or I hope you know since you passed my course, the heart of the fire moved to Rome, and so did the gods. Oh, different names perhaps. Jupiter for Zeus, Venus for Aphrodite, and so on. But the same forces, the same gods. And then they died. Died? No. Did the West die? The gods simply moved. To Germany, France, to Spain for a while, Wherever the flame was brightest, the gods were there. They spent several centuries in England. All you need to do is look at the architecture. People do not forget the gods. Every place they've ruled for the last 3,000 years, you can see them in paintings, in statues, on the most important buildings. And yes, Percy, of course they are now in your United States. Look at your symbol, the eagle of Zeus. Look at the statue of Prometheus in Rockefeller Center, the Greek facades on your government buildings in Washington. I defy you to find any American city where the Olympians are not prominently displayed in multiple places.
I will not take the challenge.
Yeah, no, I won't either. The eagle of Zeus, as in his uh, have the ads arrived?
Go ahead and keep
Or
going, cause like we can redo, or people can watch VODs, or
okay,
it'll be fine.
okay. As in the symbol of Zeus. It's his not wholly sacred animal.
Kind of like the symbol for Thor is Mjolnir.
And we got horses for Poseidon. I defy you. Okay, like it or not, and believe
It's
me,
watermark basically.
yeah, I guess you could call it that. Like it or not, and believe me, plenty of people weren't very fond of Rome either. America is now the heart of the flame. It is the great power of the West. And so Olympus is here. And we are here. It was all too much, especially the fact that I seemed to be included in Chiron's we, as if I were some part of some club. Who are you, Chiron? Who who am I? Chiron smiled. He shifted his weight as if he were going to get up out of his wheelchair, but I knew that was impossible. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Who are you? He mused. Well, that's the question we all want answered, is it not? But for now, we should get you a bunk in cabin 11. There will be new friends to meet, and plenty of time for lessons tomorrow. Besides, there will be s'mores at the campfire tonight, and I simply adore chocolate. He did rise from his wheelchair, but there was something odd about the way he did it. His blanket fell away from his legs, but the legs didn't move. His waist kept getting longer, rising above his belt. At first I thought he was wearing very long white velvet underwear, but as he kept rising out of the chair, taller than any man, I realized that the velvet underwear wasn't underwear. It was the front of an animal, muscle and sinew under coarse white fur. And the wheelchair wasn't a chair. It was some kind of container. An enormous box on wheels. And it must have been magic, because there's no way it could have held all of him. A leg came out, long and knobby-kneed, with a huge, polished hoof. Then another front leg, then hindquarters, and then the box was empty. Nothing but a metal shell with a couple of fake human legs attached. I stared at the horse who'd just sprung from the wheelchair. A huge white stallion. But where its neck should be was the upper body of my Latin teacher, smoothly grafted into the horse's trunk. What a relief, the centaur said. I'd been cooped up in there so long my fetlocks had fallen asleep. Come now, Percy Jackson. Let us meet the other campers. They really are. Wonder. No, I would not. I would not do it justice if I were to try.
Try what?
Try to sketch out Chiron as the centaur.
You could.
I can't draw animals. I can barely draw faces. I do a lot of tracing instead.
I can understand that.
I'm better at landscapes.
I suck at drawing in its entirety.
Chapter 6. I become Supreme Lord of the bathroom.
Did you say bathrobe?
Bathroom.
Bathroom. That's adorable, Shaky.
Gary is one of the easiest things to draw.
Meow.
I know you suck at backgrounds, love. But what you do is very good artwork. Once I got over the fact that my Latin teacher was a horse. Rude much?
I know,
Was
right?
a horse. We had a nice tour, though I was careful not to walk behind him. I'd done Pooper Scooper Patrol in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade a few times, and I'm sorry, I did not trust Chiron's back end the way I trusted his front.
Oh, I thought you were about to say you actually did that. Like,
I mean, I've done Pooper Scooper Patrol, but not on Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
I've done Pooper Scooper Patrol on dogs.
I've done it with horses. Thank you, summer camp. I prefer
sorry.
to have the rake and not the shovel. I'll rake it up into the piles for y'all with the shovel. We passed the volleyball pit. Several of the campers nudged each other. One pointed to the minotaur horn I was carrying. Another said, "That's him." Most of the campers were older than me. Their satyr friends were bigger than Grover. Not necessarily smack, but definitely place a hand and tap. Definitely place a hand and tap. I barely avoided a kick from one person who was an idiot not to do that. Most of the campers were older than me. Their satyr friends were bigger than Grover. All of them trotting around in orange Camp Half-Blood t-shirts, with nothing else to cover their bare, shaggy hindquarters. I wasn't normally shy, but the way they stared at me made me uncomfortable. I felt like they were expecting me to do a flip or something. I looked back at the farmhouse. It was a lot bigger than I'd realized. 4 stories tall, sky blue with white trim, like an upscale seaside resort.
That's pretty.
I was checking out. Sorry?
It's pretty.
It is. I think that's something I could possibly draw myself, actually. I was checking out the brass eagle weather vane on the top when something caught my eye. A shadow in the uppermost window of the attic gable. Something had moved the curtain, just for a second, and I got the distinct impression I was being watched. I've been stepped on a horse. It was 3 times in a single day, and it near broke my foot. I don't want to feel a horse kick, thanks. Although that horse show sounds fun. What's up there? I asked Chiron. He looked where I was pointing, and his smile faded. Just the attic. Somebody lives there? No, he said with finality. Not a single living thing. Oof. I got the feeling he was being truthful, but I was also sure something had moved that curtain. Come along, Percy, Chiron said, his light-hearted tone now a little forced. Lots to see. We walked through the strawberry fields, where campers were picking bushels of berries while a satyr played a tune on a reed pipe. Chiron told me the camp grew a nice crop for export to New York restaurants in Mount Olympus. It pays our expenses, he explained, and the strawberries take almost no effort. He said Mr. D had this effect on fruit-bearing plants. They just went crazy when he was around. It worked best with wine grapes, but Mr. D was restricted from growing those, so they grew strawberries instead. I would love a strawberry wine about now. I watched the satyr playing his pipe. His music was causing lines of bugs to leave the strawberry patch in every direction, like refugees fleeing a fire. I wondered if Grover could work that kind of magic with music. I wondered if he was still inside the farmhouse, getting chewed out by Mr. D. Grover won't get into too much trouble, will he? I asked Chiron. I mean, he was a good protector, really. Chiron sighed. He shed his tweed jacket and draped it over his horse's back like a saddle. Grover has big dreams, Percy. Perhaps bigger than are reasonable. To reach his goal, he must first demonstrate great courage by succeeding as a keeper, finding a new camper and bringing him safely to Half-Blood Hill. But he did that. I might agree with you, Chiron said, but it is not my place to judge. Dionysus and the Council of Cloven Elders must decide. I'm afraid they may not see this assignment as a success. After all, Grover lost you in New York. Then there's the unfortunate, fate of your mother. And the fact that Grover was unconscious when you dragged him over the property line. The council might question whether this shows any courage on Grover's part. I wanted to protest. None of what happened was Grover's fault. I also felt really, really guilty. If I hadn't given Grover the slip at the bus station, he might not have gotten into trouble. He'll get a second chance, won't he? Chiron winced. I'm afraid that was Grover's second chance, Percy. The council was not anxious to give him another either, after what happened the first time 5 years ago. Olympus knows I advised him to wait longer before trying again. He's still so small for his age. How old is he? Oh, 28, What? And he's in 6th grade? Sure, half as fast as humans, Percy. Grover has been the equivalent of a middle school student for the past 6 years. That's horrible. Quite, Chiron agreed. At any rate, Grover is a late bloomer, even by Satyr standards, and not yet very accomplished at woodland magic. Alas, he was anxious to pursue his dream. Perhaps now he'll find some other career. That's not fair, I said. What happened the first time? Was it really so bad? Charon looked away quickly. Let's move along, shall we? But I wasn't quite ready to let the subject drop. Something had occurred to me when Chiron talked about my mother's fate, as if he were intentionally avoiding the word death. The beginnings of an idea, a tiny, hopeful fire, started forming in my mind. Chiron, I said, if the gods and Olympus are all real. Yes, child? Does that mean the underworld is real too? Chiron's expression darkened. Yes, child. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. There is a place where spirits go after death. But for now, until we know more, I would urge you to put that out of your mind. What do you mean, until we know more? Come, Percy, let's see the woods. Not the world, the woods. One moment. Okay. Maybe now I will stop trying to mix up words. As we got closer, I realized how huge the forest was. It took up at least a quarter of the valley, with trees so tall and thick you could imagine nobody had been in there since the Native Americans. Chiron said, "The woods are stocked, if you care to try your luck, but go armed." With what? I asked. Armed with what? You'll see. Capture the flag is Friday night. Do you have your own sword and shield? My own... No, Chiron said. I don't suppose you do. I think a size 5 will do. I'll visit the armory later. I wanted to ask what kind of summer camp had an armory, but there was too much else to think about. So the tour continued. We saw the archery range, the canoeing lake, the stables, which Chiron didn't seem to like very much, the javelin range, the sing-along amphitheater, and the arena where Chiron said they held sword and spear fights. Sword and spear fights? I asked. Cabin challenges and all that, he explained. Not lethal. Usually. Oh yes, and there's the mess hall. I like how he just glosses over the usually part of not lethal. Chiron pointed to an outdoor pavilion framed in white Grecian columns on a hill overlooking the stone overlooking the sea. There were a dozen stone picnic tables. No roof, no walls. "What do you do when it rains?" I asked. Chiron looked at me as if I'd gone a little weird. "We still have to eat, don't we?" I decided to drop the subject. Yet another question not properly answered. Finally, he showed me the cabins. There were 12 of them, nestled in the woods by the lake. They were arranged in a U, with 2 at the base and 5 in a row on either side. And they were, without a doubt, the most bizarre collection of buildings I'd ever seen. Pardon me, guys. Except for the fact that each of them had a large brass number on the door, odds on the left side, evens on the right. They looked absolutely nothing alike. Number 9 had smokestacks, like a tiny factory. Number 4 had tomato vines on the walls and a roof made out of real grass. 7 seemed to be made of solid gold, which gleamed so much in the sunlight it was almost impossible to look at. They all faced a commons area, about the size of a soccer field, dotted with Greek statues, fountains, flower beds, and a couple of basketball hoops, which were more my speed. In the center of the field was a huge, stone-lined fire pit. Even though it was a warm afternoon, the earth smoldered. A girl about 9 years old was tending the flames, poking the coals with a stick. A pair of cabins at the head of the field, numbers 1 and 2, looked like his and hers mausoleums. Big, white marble boxes with heavy columns in front. Cabin 1 was the biggest and bulkiest of the 12. Its polished bronze doors shimmered like a hologram, so that from different angles, lightning bolts seemed to streak across them. Cabin 2 was more graceful, somehow, with slimmer columns garlanded with pomegranates and flowers. The walls were carved with images of peacocks. Zeus and Hera, I guessed? Correct, Chiron said. Their cabins look empty. Several of the cabins are, that's true. No one ever stays in 1 or 2. Hey, that rhymed. Okay. So each cabin had a different god, like a mascot. 12 cabins for the 12 Olympians. But why would some be empty? I stopped in front of the first cabin on the left, cabin 3. It wasn't high and mighty like cabin 1, but it was long and low and solid. The outer walls were of rough gray stone, studded with pieces of seashell and coral, as if the slabs had been hewn straight from the bottom of the ocean floor. I peeked inside the open doorway, and Chiron said, "Oh, I wouldn't do that." Before he could pull me back, I caught the salty scent of the interior, like the wind on the shore at Montauk. The interior walls glowed like abalone. Abalone? I'm actually not too sure about that pronunciation. I'm just going to say abalone. There were 6 empty bunk beds with silk sheets turned down, but there was no sign anyone had ever slept there. The place felt so sad and lonely. I was glad when Chiron put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Come along, Percy." Most of the other cabins were crowded with campers. Number 5 was bright red, a real nasty paint job, as if the color had been splashed on with buckets and fists. The roof was lined with barbed wire. A stuffed wild boar's head hung over the doorway, and its eyes seemed to follow me. Inside, I could see a bunch of mean-looking kids, both girls and boys, arm wrestling and arguing with each other while rock music blared. The loudest was a girl, maybe 13 or 14. She wore a size 3XL Camp Half-Blood t-shirt under a camouflage jacket. She zeroed in on me and gave me an evil sneer. She reminded me of Nancy Bobofit, though the camper girl was much bigger and tougher looking, and her hair was long and stringy, and brown instead of red. I kept walking, trying to stay clear of Chiron's hooves. "Seen any other centaurs?" I observed. "No," Chiron said sadly. "My kinsmen are wild and barbaric folk, I'm afraid. You might encounter them in the wilderness, or at major sporting events, but you won't see any here." "You said your name was Chiron. Are you really—" He smiled down at me. "The Chiron from the stories? Trainer of Hercules and all that?" "Yes, Percy, I am." Fun fact, Hercules is Greek, Hercules is Latin, Heracles is Greek. "But shouldn't you be dead?" Chiron paused, as if the question intrigued him. "I honestly don't know what about should be. The truth is, I can't be dead. You see, eons ago, the gods granted my wish. I could continue the work I loved. I would be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. I gained much from that wish, and I gave up much. But I'm still here, so I can only assume I'm still needed. I thought about being a teacher for 3,000 years. It wouldn't have made my top 10 things to wish for list." "Doesn't it ever get boring?" No, he said. "Horribly depressing at times, but never boring." "Why depressing?" Chiron seemed to turn hard of hearing again. "Oh, look," he said. "Annabeth is waiting for us." The blonde girl I'd met at the big house was reading a book in front of the last cabin on the left, number 11. When we reached her, she looked me over critically, like she was still thinking about how much I drooled. I tried to see what she was reading, but I couldn't make out the title. I thought my dyslexia was acting up. Then I realized the title wasn't even English. The letters looked Greek to me. Like, literally, Greek. There were pictures of temples and statues and different kinds of columns, like those in an architecture book. "Annabeth," Chiron said, "I have master's archery class at noon. Would you take Percy from here?" Yes, sir. Cabin 11, Tyrone told me, gesturing towards the doorway. Make yourself at home. Out of all the cabins, Cabin 11 looked the most like a regular old summer camp cabin, with the emphasis on old. The threshold was worn down, the brown paint peeling. Over the doorway was one of those doctor's symbols, a winged pole with two snakes wrapped around it. What did they call it? A caduceus. Inside, it was packed with people, both boys and girls, way more than the number of bunk beds. Sleeping bags were spread all over the floor. It looked like a gym where the Red Cross had set up an evacuation center. He didn't go in. The door was too low for him. But when the campers saw him, they all stood and bowed respectfully. Well then, Tryon said. Good luck, Percy. I'll see you at dinner. He galloped away toward the archery range. I stood in the doorway, looking at the kids. They weren't bowing anymore. They were staring at me, sizing me up. I knew this routine. I'd gone through it at enough schools. Well, Annabeth prompted. Go on. So naturally, I tripped coming in the door and made a total fool of myself. There were some snickers from the campers, but none of them said anything. Annabeth announced, Percy Jackson, meet Cabin 11. Regular or undetermined? Somebody asked. I didn't know what to say, but Annabeth said, undetermined. Everybody groaned. A guy who was a little older than the rest came forward. Now, campers. That's why we're here. Welcome, Percy. You can have that spot on the floor, right over there. The guy was about 19, and he looked pretty cool. He was tall and muscular, with short-cropped sandy hair and a friendly smile. He wore an orange tank top, cut-offs, sandals, and a leather necklace with 5 different colored clay beads. The only thing unsettling about his appearance was a thick white scar that ran from just beneath his right eye to his jaw, like an old knife slash. Luke, Annabeth said, and her voice sounded different somehow. I glanced over, and I could have sworn she was blushing. She saw me looking, and her expression hardened again. He's your counselor for now. For now? I asked. You're undetermined, Luke explained patiently. They don't know what cabin to put you in, so you're here. Cabin 11 takes all newcomers, all visitors. Naturally, we would. Hermes, our patron, is the god of travelers. I looked at the tiny section of floor they'd given me. I had nothing to put there to mark it as my own. No luggage, no clothes, no sleeping bag. Just the Minotaur's horn. Thought about setting that down, but then I remembered that Hermes was also the god of thieves. I looked around at the campers' faces, some sullen and suspicious, some grinning stupidly, some eyeing me as if they were waiting for a chance to pick my pockets. How long will I be here? I asked. Good question, Luke said. Until you're determined. How long will that take? The campers all laughed. Come on, Annabeth told me. I'll show you the volleyball court. I've already seen it. Come on. She grabbed my wrist and dragged me outside. I could hear the kids of Cabin 11 laughing behind me. When we were a few feet away, Annabeth said, "Jackson, you have to do better than that." What? Eyes and mumbled under her breath, "Can't believe I thought you were the one." What's your problem? I was getting angry now. All I know is I kill some bull guy. Don't talk like that, Annabeth told me. You know how many kids at this camp wish they'd had your chance? To get killed? To fight the Minotaur. What do you think we train for? I shook my head. Look, if the thing I fought really was the Minotaur, the same one in the stories, yes, then there's only one. Yes. And he died like a gajillion years ago, right? Theseus killed him in the labyrinth. So, monsters don't die, Percy. They can be killed, but they don't die. Oh, thanks. That clears it up. They don't have souls like you and me. You can dispel them for a while, maybe even for a whole lifetime if you're lucky. But they are primal forces. Chiron calls them archetypes. Eventually, they reform. I thought about Mrs. Dodds. You mean, if I killed one, accidentally, with a sword, the fear... your math teacher? That's right, she's still out there. You just made her very, very mad. How did you know about Mrs. Dodds? You talk in your sleep. You almost called her something. A fury? They're Hades' torturers, right? Annabeth glanced nervously at the ground, as if she expected it to open up and swallow her. You shouldn't call them by name, even here. We call them the kindly ones, if we have to speak of them at all. Look, is there anything we can say without it thundering? I sounded whiny, even to myself. But right then, I didn't care. Why do I have to stay in cabin 11 anyway? Why is everybody so crowded together? There are plenty of empty bunks right over there. I pointed to the first few cabins, and Annabeth turned pale. You don't choose a cabin, Percy. It depends on who your parents are. Or your parent. She stared at me, waiting for me to get it. My mom is Sally Jackson, I said. She works at the candy store in Grand Central Station. At least, she used to. I'm sorry about your mom, Percy, but that's not what I meant. I'm talking about your other parent. Your dad. He's dead. I never knew him. Annabeth sighed. Clearly, she'd had this conversation before with other kids. Your father's not dead, Percy. How can you say that? You know him? No, of course not. Then how can you... Because I know you. You wouldn't be here if you weren't one of us. You don't know anything about me. No? She raised an eyebrow. I bet you moved around from school to school. Bet you were kicked out of a lot of them. How? Diagnosed with dyslexia. Probably ADHD, too. I tried to swallow my embarrassment. What does that have to do with anything? Taken together, it's almost a sure sign. The letters float off the page when you read, right? That's because your mind is hardwired for ancient Greek. And the ADHD? You're impulsive, can't sit still in the classroom. That's your battlefield reflexes. In a real fight, they'd keep you alive. As for the attention problems, that's because you see too much, Percy, not too little. Your senses are better than regular mortals. Of course, the teachers want you medicated. Most of them are monsters. They don't want you seeing them for what they are. You sound like you went through the same thing? Most of the kids here did. If you weren't like us, you wouldn't have survived the Minotaur, much less the ambrosia and nectar. Ambrosia and nectar. The food and drink we were giving you to make you better. That stuff would have killed a normal kid. Would have turned your blood to fire and your bones to sand, and you'd be dead. Face it, you're a half-blood. A half-blood. I was reeling with so many questions, I didn't know where to start. Then a husky voice yelled, "Well, a newbie." I looked over. The big girl from the ugly red cabin was sauntering toward us. She had 3 other girls behind her, all big and ugly and mean, looking like her, all wearing camo jackets. Clarice, Annabeth sighed. Why don't you go polish your spear or something? Sure, Miss Princess, the big girl said, so I can run you through with it Friday night. Era es Caracas, Annabeth said, which I somehow understood was Greek for go to the crows, though I had a feeling it was a worse curse than it sounded. You don't stand a chance. We'll pulverize you, Clarice said, but her eye twitched. Perhaps she wasn't sure she could follow through on the threat. She turned toward me. Who's this little runt? Percy Jackson, Annabeth said. Meet Clarice, daughter of Ares. I blinked. Like the war god? Clarice sneered. You got a problem with that? No, I said, recovering my wits. It explains the bad smell. Clarice growled. We got an initiation ceremony for newbies, Prissy. Percy. Whatever. Come on, I'll show you. Clarice, Annabeth tried to say. Stay out of it, wise girl. Annabeth looked pained, but she did stay out of it, and I didn't really want her help. I was the new kid. I had to earn my own rep. I handed Annabeth my Minotaur horn and got ready to fight. But before I knew it, Clarice had me by the neck and was dragging me toward a cinder block building that I knew immediately was the bathroom. I was kicking and punching. I'd been in plenty of fights before, but this big girl, Clarice, had hands like iron. She dragged me into the girls' bathroom. There was a line of toilets on one side and a line of shower stalls down the other. It smelled just like any public bathroom, and I was thinking, as much as I could think with Clarice ripping my hair out, that if this place belonged to the gods, They should have been able to afford classier Johns. Clarice's friends were all laughing, and I was trying to find the strength I'd use to fight the Minotaur, but it just wasn't there. Like he's big three material, Clarice said as she pushed me towards the toilets. Yeah, right. Minotaur probably fell over laughing, he was so stupid looking. Her friends snickered. Annabeth stood in the corner, watching through her fingers. Clarice bent me over on my knees and started pushing my head toward the toilet bowl. It reeked like rusted pipes and, well, like what goes into toilets. I strained to keep my head up. I was looking at the scummy water, thinking, I will not go into that. I won't. Then something happened. I felt a tug in the pit of my stomach. I heard the plumbing rumble, the pipes shudder. Clarice's grip on my hair loosened. Water shot out of the toilet, making an arc straight over my head. And the next thing I knew, I was sprawled on the bathroom tiles with Clarice screaming behind me. I turned just as the water blasted out of the toilet again, hitting Clarice straight in the face so hard it pushed her down onto her butt. The water stayed on her like a spray from a fire hose, pushing her backward into a shower stall. She struggled, gasping, and her friends started coming toward her. But then the other toilets exploded, too, and 6 more streams of toilet water blasted them back. The showers acted up as well, and together all the fixtures sprayed the camouflage girls right out of the bathroom, spinning them away like pieces of garbage being washed away. As soon as they were out the door, I felt the tug in my gut lessen, and the water shut off as quickly as it had started. The entire bathroom was flooded. Annabeth hadn't been spared. She was dripping wet, but she hadn't been pushed out the door. She was standing in exactly the same place, staring at me in shock. I looked down and realized I was sitting in the only dry spot in the whole room. And there was a circle of dry floor around me. I didn't have one drop of water on my clothes. Nothing. I stood up, my legs shaky. Annabeth said, "You?" I don't know. We walked to the door. Outside, Clarice and her friends were sprawled in the mud, and a bunch of other campers had gathered around to gawk. Clarice's hair was flattened across her face. Her camouflage jacket was sopping, and she smelled like sewage. She gave me a look of absolute hatred. "You're dead, new boy. You're totally dead." Probably should have let it go, but I said, "You want to gargle with toilet water again, Clarice? Close your mouth." Her friends had to hold her back. They dragged her toward cabin 5, while the other campers made way to avoid her flailing feet. I couldn't tell whether Annabeth stared at me. I couldn't tell whether she was just grossed out or angry at me for dousing her. "What?" I demanded. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," she said, "that I want you on my team for Capture the Flag." "How you doing, Raina?" Raina. Alright, give me a moment, guys. I'm looking to see if someone will respond on the other end. Mainly because if she did fall asleep, I have no way of ending the stream. Raina,
Yeah.
you fall asleep there?
Yeah.
Would you like to go ahead and end it for the night?
Uh, do you want to end it?
I'll be honest, I started to yawn myself
If you want to, we can.
at the end of that end of the last chapter. We only made it 2 chapters.
But
Next up will be chapter 7. My dinner goes up in smoke.
can if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end it.
And I will see about typing up quick chapter summaries so that we can go back and quickly touch upon everything that was read so that no one's truly lost by the time we start back up
Please tell me I didn't
next
start
week.
snoring on stream.
No, I don't think you did.
Okay. I would have been very
It would have been
embarrassed
adorable.
about that.
It would have been adorable.
Okay. Well,
I will work on summarizing what we have read so far so that I can do a quick touch on everything next week before we get started again.
okay. That we're
Alright.
gonna go ahead and end. Thank you guys for showing up.
Have a lovely night. Sleep well, everyone.